Ukraine is not content with eroding infantry. It is decapitating Russia's technical capabilities. We have selected 5 key devices to be eradicated. The first, the S-400 Triumph, the latest and supposedly best air defense missile of Russia. Price, $1.2 billion per battery, usually 8 in a battery. It is the crown jewel of Russian air defense, allegedly the best in the world, well, at least according to the Russians. However, just last month, we saw the Lizard Group from Ukraine deploy a drone for $500 to blind these billion-dollar systems in Belgorod and used other low-cost drones in Crimea, and the attacks continue. Only on the night of April 4th, Ukrainian drone operators from the 9th Battalion Kairos destroyed a key component of the S-400 Triumph near Feodosia in Crimea, specifically the multifunction radar 92N6E, which is responsible for detecting and tracking aerial threats at distances of up to 600 kilometers. The radar, which was supposed to protect Russia's most advanced air defense system, gone, destroyed by a drone. Ukraine has now destroyed a total of 31 S-400 systems throughout the war. Russia's supposedly impenetrable sky is officially open for business. Then, the eyes in the sky of Russia, the A-50 mainstay. Price, $330 million. At the beginning of the war, Russia had only about 9 of them. They coordinate missile strikes, air packages with fixed wings, and the command and control of the air forces that support the Russian ground troops. Ukraine has now shot down or damaged at least 3, including a precise strike on a repair workshop in Novgorod last week. Russia is literally going blind. They cannot build new ones fast enough to replace those falling from the sky. Their production lines for this equipment no longer exist. And then came Operation Spiderweb. And this is where it gets extraordinary. On June 1st, 2025, the Security Service of Ukraine carried out Operation Spiderweb, a coordinated strike targeting the long-range aircraft of the Russian Air Force at 5 Air Force bases across 5 time zones, using 117 drones hidden in trucks on Russian territory. Let that sink in. The raid destroyed or degraded more than 40 strategic bombers of the Tu-95, Tu-160, and Tu-22M3 types, as well as an early warning jet of the A-50 type, about 1/3 of Russia's long-range strike fleet, and approximately $7 billion worth of material. And here is the most humiliating detail. Each FPV drone used in the operation cost only a few $100s, while a Russian radar reconnaissance aircraft A-50 costs more than $300 million. A few $100s against $300 million. That is the math of modern warfare. Many of these aircraft are no longer being produced. What was lost cannot be easily replaced. And Zelensky revealed another astonishing detail. The entire operation was coordinated from within Russia, from an office located right next to an FSB building. They carried out the mission right under the eyes of the Russian intelligence service itself. Then we have the T-90M ProRiv. Price tag, $4.5 million per tank. Putin calls it the best tank in the world. That is not the case. Despite an estimated production of 250 to 300 tanks in 2025, over 153 T-90 Menims have been confirmed lost according to the open-source tracking Oryx. They suffer from the same jack-in-the-box deficiency as the old Soviet models. A well-placed FPV drone, and the turret is shot into orbit. It is a steel coffin with a PR campaign around it. And now, the most telling sign of all, the T-90M has actually disappeared from the active front lines. The Kremlin has been forced to move its elite armor into reserve formations, far from the battlefield. Russia's most advanced tank is now hidden. That says a lot. The T-90M is the tank that the West feared, which is why we modernized many of our anti-tank missile systems from NLAW Block 1 to NLAW Block 2. The NLAW Block 1 had a single warhead with a shaped charge. Scientists thought it would not be able to penetrate and destroy the T-90M. However, the Ukrainians proved the opposite. We didn't even have to switch to Block 2, as Block 1 handles a tank that has too much PR and not enough armor perfectly. Then the Tupolev Tu-22M3 backfire. Price, $40 million per unit. These are the platforms used to launch cruise missiles at Ukrainian cities from within Russia. But Operation Spiderweb has proven that no airbase is safe. A drone, a lithium battery, and a warhead cost far less than $3,000. A Russian bomber Tu-160 costs $250 million. We have seen these supersonic giants burning on the tarmac in Belaya, over 4,300 kilometers from the border. When you lose strategic bombers to recreational drones, your deterrence is gone. The Tu-22 is also a bomber capable of carrying nuclear weapons. It carries nuclear warheads alongside the hypersonic Kinjal missiles used to strike Ukraine. But the damage caused by Operation Spiderweb goes far beyond physical destruction. Now, every freight truck in Russia is a potential threat. Every driver is a suspect. In the days following the attack, massive traffic jams were reported in regions like Irkutsk as authorities began systematically inspecting freight trucks. Surveillance resources are being redirected to monitor tens of thousands of kilometers of highway. Military and civilian logistics are slowing down. Ukraine has not only destroyed aircraft, it has turned Russia's paranoia against itself. And finally, the Scat 450M. Price tag, $400,000. Russia's response to stealth. It recognizes the Iskander missiles. By tracking them, Ukraine cuts the nerves of Russian long-range precision artillery. There are fewer than 20 in the Russian inventory, and the survival rate of these stealth aircraft decreases every day. There is a common thread among these 5 systems. They're all old Soviet designs, and many of the experts, scientists, and engineers who designed them were Ukrainians. This expertise no longer exists in Russia in the same way. Ukraine is not only dismantling the equipment, but also the entire industrial defense base of Russia. So, what is this? It is the Fortress Belt of Ukraine, the ultimate prize in eastern Ukraine. A chain of 50 kilometers of fortified cities stretching from Sloviansk through Kramatorsk to Druzhkivka and Kostiantynivka. The backbone of Ukrainian defense in the Donetsk Oblast since 2014. Its fall would open pathways westward towards Kharkiv, Dnipro, and Zaporizhzhia. Before the war, 400,000 people lived in this urban chain. If Russia takes it, it basically controls the entire Donbass. For 11 years, Kyiv has invested immense resources to transform these cities into fortified bastions of defense. Remember that while peace talks are ongoing in Miami, Putin demands that Kyiv give up this critical defense line in exchange for nothing. Putin has explicitly listed the capitulation of the fortress ring as a condition for a ceasefire. This is not a peace offer. This is a ransom note. According to the ISW, Russia is now attempting a massive encirclement attack. It is pushing northeast around Lyman towards Sloviansk, while simultaneously advancing from the south near Kramatorsk and Kostiantynivka. But to do this, they must advance through an openly heavily defended terrain, and they will be absolutely torn apart in the process. The ISW reports that on March 19th, Russian forces launched a massive mechanized assault on the scale of a battalion, much larger than anything we saw in the winter. Of about 500 Russian military personnel involved in this offensive, 405 were recorded as casualties. Over 80% of a battalion was destroyed within a few hours. In 4 days of intense assault operations, Russian forces lost more than 6,090 fallen and wounded soldiers. Within a single week, total losses amounted to about 8,710 dead and severely injured. The ISW has categorically described this loss rate as unsustainable. The Russian forces are expected to be unable to capture the fortified zone by 2026, as the only army positioned for a direct attack on Sloviansk has already come to a standstill, and the encircling forces are advancing even more slowly. Overall, Russian losses are currently about twice as high as the figures we observed in winter. However, we must not underestimate the willingness of Russian military commanders to accept catastrophic losses. They are adapting, even out of sheer desperation.